Jawaharlal Nehru University, the premier graduate school in India. It's in the news because there's a struggle over what is nationalism. What is the meaning of being nationalist, and what was the meaning of being anti-national? It started off with student protest over a judicial execution of someone who had attacked the parliament a few years ago. And that got conflated with another protest where the student leaders were protesting. They're shouting about freedom from Manuvada. I think Barbara will register what Barbara said. It's freedom from the caste stipulations that are rife in a university even as prestigious as Jawaharlal Nehru. And that got conflated with freedom from India, which was a call for Kashmiri students, Kashmir being a problematic secessionist movement ever since India became a nation state. So those two narratives got conflated, and then student leaders were branded as anti-national for calling freedom against the nation. And then you have Hindu nationalist party in Par, which actually reinvents or rediscovers an ancient Vedic age where the Vedas talk about airplanes, space travel, and that's legit. It was presented at an Indian conference on science, the premier conference on science, where they talk about Vedic science. So that is one. The second one I wanted to bring up is something I remember from our readings my reading of David Chittister's Savage Systems. There's this interaction between Bishop Willem Colenso and his Zulu translator William Ngidi. So you can imagine the two of them are sitting there. Colenso gives him a passage of the Bible, and William Ngidi is giving the translations. And Colenso recollects, this is what he says. While translating the story of the flood, I have had a simple-minded but intelligent native, one with the docility of a child, but the reasoning power of a mature age. Look up and ask, is that all true? Do you really believe that all this happened thus? So with that, we're gonna, I've just prepared a few preliminary thoughts for question of who. And I'll just read it through, and with Jackie's permission, I'm going to use our format that we break up into groups after this and come back for a larger discussion. In his analysis of schizophrenia, neuroscientist Klaus Conrad had honed in on the human instinct for seeing connections accompanied by a specific feeling of abnormal meaningfulness. Conrad's neologism for the spontaneous perception of connections and meaningfulness of unrelated phenomena was apophenia. Beyond pathologies of schizophrenia may be immediately located in the stories we narrate about ourselves and the worlds we inhabit. In his provocative memoir, Joseph Anton, Salman Rushdie reminisces about the potency and innateness of such storytelling. And just read this passage that he writes. He writes in the third person out here. When he was a small boy, his father at bedtime told him the great wonder tales of the East, told them and retold them, and remade them and reinvented them in his own way. The stories of Scheherazade from the 1001 Nights, stories told against death to prove the ability of stories to civilize and overcome even the most murderous of tyrants, and the animal fables of the Panchatantra, and the marvels that pour like a waterfall from the Katha Sadit Saga, the ocean of the streams of story. The immense story lake created in Kashmir, where his ancestors had been born, and the tales of mighty heroes collected in the Hamzanam, and the adventures of Hatim Tai. This was also a film whose many embellishments of the original tales were added to and augmented in the bedtime retellings. He goes on to make this observation: man was the storytelling animal, the only creature on earth that told itself stories to understand what kind of creature it was. As human beings, we are not only pattern seeking, but also storytelling animals. Our stories are acutely epiphanic and attuned to some form of meaning, a pattern, an understanding, a design within which we locate ourselves. What must not be missed is that these stories can be embellished, retold, or reinvented in the act of meaning making. And despite the canons that attempt to fix their limits, they are not finished products. At this point, let me bring into for our discussion of the ISS tagline, excavating discourse and power, because it forces us further into the murky and contested terrain of significations. For Rancière, politics exists when the figure of a specific subject is constituted, a supernumerary subject in relation to the calculated number of groups, places, and functions in a society. Aesthetics, the visible, the sayable, and the thinkable about society is bound in that unequal relation and the struggle for, in Bolivar's terms, égale liberté. In Toni Morrison's Beloved, these politics are signified on sixo. Oh, there's many more, but just want to bring on this instance where sixo is beaten by a school teacher for stealing, eating the stolen pig. Quote, to show him that definitions belong to the definers, not the defined. The ramifications extract a heavy toll on the defined. And yet these definitions and epiphanic articulations are always susceptible to rupturing under the pressure of tactical embellishments and reinventions that displace prevailing aesthetic regimes. The defined definer and the supernumerary and subjectivized dualities provide a broad spectrum of human relations to locate, identify, and analyze the politically charged who. Meaning making emerges from both poles of the spectrum and all in between, so that it inverts or reinforces the polarities. However, might it be possible to locate displacements of the very regimes that engender these polarities? And I'm trying to think subjunctively here. What might the terrain of heterological significations, where the meaningful fabric of the sensible is disturbed, look like? Can such heterologies render more politically nuanced excavations of the who question? And that as a jumpstart for our discussions,